Well, it works just about. Oh, fucking hell, it's taking some right force. Now then, I've got a parcel here from Tegiwa, and it's something that I've wanted for a while. So in there's a string kit. A couple of years ago I saw Matt and Rob having a go with this kit, and it looks proper.
So there we go, sort of just under 98mm.
Got 105.5.
So 6.5 toe out, or toe in? Toe in.
Yeah.
I've also got a cheap and cheerful camber caster gauge, which it wasn't that cheap. It's about 70 quid I think all in. Camber gauges can go from like £20 up to like 400 quid, so I think this is like a happy medium. Seems alright. I've just done a quick little test on the other side and I can get the camber reading, so what more do you want? I'm going to get this string kit unboxed. We'll try and get it attached to the car, and then we can have a look at where the toe currently is. Turn the box inside out and not one packet of Haribo Tegiwa, so not sure what's going on there. But so we've got this thing. It comes in a nice little case. I've got no idea which way is the top though. Should we just go for a guess? Should we? Christ, there's a lot going on here. Oh wow. Thanks Tegiwa. Yeah, we are trying to cure that snap oversteer. You funny. Is this where the Haribos are then? I get it now. Thanks Tegiwa. How long do you think it's taken me to get this assembled and ready for action? 2.5 hours. Basically what you're doing with this string kit is you're creating a box around the car, and to measure kind of where you are with that box you go off the centre of the wheel, which is a bit difficult on this car because it doesn't have centre caps, but I've just tried to make sure the distance between the rear wheels and the string's the same and the front wheels and the string's the same, and it is now. Let me show you some of the fun I've been having. So what I started out by doing on this was trying to assemble the kit onto the car, onto the front and onto the back, and then I tried to make sure that all these lengths for each side, tried to make sure they were the same, so just by measuring and shuffling the bar. After that, this bar connects, this is 2 pieces across. I measured the centre line of the car and the centre line of this bar and made a mark. So I made a little paint mark for where the hooks go on, and I did that at the front and the back. You might see it slightly off, but we'll come to that. So I thought if I measure all these bars and I measure the centre line, there's no way that I can't get this on. I've dicked around for ages thinking the key to success was getting all these bars equal length. But based on what I've found just now, or what I think I've just found, it doesn't really matter too much, kind of the length or whatever, the assortment of these bars. If you're just measuring for the centre of the wheel, as long as you get these bars kind of at the centre of the wheel height, which we kind of have, then you can just, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to fuck it up because I've just got it right, but you can just twiddle these bars in and out, and then with a ruler I was able to shove that in as far as it'll go on the front and get the measurement, and the same on the other side. On the rear there's a drive shaft, so the front to rear measurements are slightly different, but as long as the axle, the front axle and the back axle are the same, I think we're going to be alright. Like, this is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm sure with repetition and, you know, getting to it, it'll speed up. So what I'm going to do now is take my initial measurements of where I'm at, and then I'm going to max the camber on the front on the BC coilovers, so we'll put the maximum camber on, see how that affects the toe, go from there, try and get the car aligned. One of the lads up here is a fabricator, the guy with the L200. He's going to make me some tables, some little 2-foot tables to put on each 4 of the wheels, and then I'll be able to raise the car up, lower them onto that and adjust them without too much more pissing about in the future. But let's get going. Right chaps, let's do this together, and then if I mess it up we've got a shared responsibility. So I've just done a couple of measurements. Now the numbers here are the distance in millimetres between the front of the tyre and the string, and then the back of the tyre and the string. Oop, not in videoing it. Now I did start by doing it off the rim, but because these wheels are a bit knackered, I bought them second hand for about 50, I think it was about 50 quid, just to do the championship. There's quite a lot of curbing around some of them and it's not very smooth. Whereas the tyre, if I just go to the biggest part or you know, the part that sticks out the most on the front of the rim of the tyre and the back of the rim of the tyre, I can get an idea of how things are. So just to confirm, the centre distance is the same across the front axle and the rear axle. So the differences that we're measuring now is the toe. One thing that I want to do is max off these BC coilovers for the camber. I've measured the camber. This is my camber gauge. I'll show you it a bit more later. So I've measured the camber on the front already, and it's about 1.6, 1.7. Before I do the toe, I'm going to max that off because changes to camber and toe kind of affect each other differently. Right, so I've maxed off the camber on the front of the BC coilovers, and that now gives us 2.4 degrees on this side and 2.8 on the other side. So slightly different, but the steering arms probably aren't the same length, and as we know, the toe definitely isn't the same. So let's go and sit the toe, try and get the toe somewhere even, and then we'll come back to that and see how it affects the camber. Right, so the car's in the air. Now, as we're doing the front first, so I slackened these off last night in preparation for this. Took quite a lot of heat and quite a lot of force. They're really stiff at the minute as well, which is not ideal, but we can adjust them. So on both sides, this is what we're going to be doing. So this is at the front of the wheel, as you can see. And going by our measurements, the distance between the front of the wheel and the wire and the back of the wheel and the wire is shorter. So in order to get our toe at least parallel, let's try and get it parallel to start with. We're going to wind this bar out, so it'll make that distance greater. Push the front of the wheel out a bit more. Obviously bring the back in at the same time, so that's why just a little movement here can have such a big change on these numbers. If I had a tripod and statically mounted this camera, you would be able to see the slightest little bit of movement, even just by doing that. I want you to have a listen to just how tight this is. It sounds awful. Very, very, very fine. Can you see it? You're on my knees. Oh. Fucking hell, it's taking some right force. Alright, that might give us enough to do what I want to do though, which will be nice. Let's try it. Right, we've had a bit of good luck at last. I've just managed to fluke the front. Totally wasn't expecting it, and I've measured it 3 times just to be sure, but I've got the front exactly where I want it, which is nice. Alright, let's move on to the rear then. I've just locked off the front. Hopefully it's still going to be the same reading when we put it down, but we'll see. So on the rear, now there's only one way to adjust the rear toe on these cars. Now obviously it's going to be different on every car, how to adjust things, but we're doing a MRS Spyder today. This is what I've got in my shop, in my alignment shop. Just some numpty's car from the local area. What a knobhead. So you've got one big kind of eccentric looking washer there, and that's got 2 posts that it pushes against on the rear subframe. Again with the rear, as you saw with the front, I've changed the bits that need changing, and this was a bit hanging, so I painted it, but I've not gone too far. We have got bushes in all the right places. All these bits have been rebushed. There's a poly bush in there. Oh no, that's a ball joint. Poly bush there, that's in the hub. BC coils. We've got braided lines and stuff like that, and new calipers. You see my new caliper? Shiny, shiny. So, keep that in mind when you're making judgment on my Titanic MR2. But so yeah, what we're going to do here, I'm going to move this, and this arm's going to move, which is going to change the toe. Did you see it? That's what you call a camera mount. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just play with those bolts on either side, take the measurements, trying to get it something like. Measuring the car whilst it's in the air seems more accurate than I thought it would be. I thought the forces in play of having the car suspended in the air to it being on the floor, I thought there'd be a greater difference, but it seems to move kind of linear. So we'll carry on and hopefully we'll be all right. Now, one thing worth mentioning is I've only got those 2 points on the back of the car on each side. I've only got 1 point of each side to adjust the geo to keep it within the regulations. I am allowed to run the camber bolts which I had on my previous MR2, and I just didn't like them, so I've held off buying any of those now. And what I've done instead is, when I've fitted the coilovers, if you fitted aftermarket coilovers to one of these cars, you'll know there's a bit of a gap, or when you're putting the actual strut in, you can force it all the way in and to try and get the maximum camber just from the shocker itself. I think BC do elongate one of the holes slightly to make that easier, and on the previous Spyder, when I had all the adjustable arms and everything, I hated that, but now obviously I quite like it because it gives me a bit of free adjustability. So what I've done on the rear shocks when I put them together was I forced them all the way in to give the most camber I could, and then we've got the two, one on each side, toe adjusters, and that's going to be us. So we'll see what we can do. I'm going to try and get the toe somewhere near even, and then drop it down and see if it toes in or toes out. That's what I did with the front, and it worked out perfect. I got the front even in the air, and when it came down it was 2 mil out. So we'll see what happens on the rear. Right, we really are cooking with gas now. I don't know if I've just kind of discovered the trade secret or not. Maybe I shouldn't tell you, but seemingly the changes that I'm making, maybe it's just specific to this car, but the changes that I'm making in the air are completely linear to the ones on the floor. And if I make 3 mil of change at the top, it's still 3 mil at the bottom. I know, it doesn't make sense. I didn't think it'd be like that either. Either I've completely fluked it, or that's what's happening. So I've just done the rear, and I've got a bit too much on this side, but I've got exactly 2 mil in on this side, which might be a bit much, might be a bit stable, but my old MRS wasn't stable, so if it's more stable than that, then we'll see. So I just need to wind off a little bit on this side, but I'm confident that I can do it in the air. So if I measure it and it goes back up and there's still 3 mil difference on this side and 2 mil difference on this side, then we've cracked it, boys. We're absolutely laughing. It's going well. Right, we're all done. Great success. We're in about 4 hours from opening the box to having the car aligned, so that's not too bad for the first time, I don't think. Now I've took note of things, and I don't know if you'll be able to read what's going on here, but I'll show you quickly before we go outside. So the top row is the distances in millimetres at the front and the back of the tyre. So the back of the tyre, front of the tyre. That's what they measured when they were unloaded, just to try and get an idea of what the difference would be. So very slight. And then finally, now I did actually lose the toe on the rear. I thought I was going to have a little bit of toe in. You heard me speaking quite excitedly just before, thinking that I'd cracked the code, the Da Vinci GeoMaster code, but no, unfortunately not. When I dropped the car down, I actually ended up with 74 on both left and right tyres on the rear axle. So I ended up with neutral, with bang on the middle, so I was like, okay, we'll keep that. Why not? So we've got a bit of toe out on the front, and then we've got just neutral on the back. And the camber, so remember I fully maxed in the BC coilovers on the front, and then on the front and the rear, when I was installing the coilovers, I made sure they were pushed all the way in, because the BCs have a little slot. So I wanted the most camber I could for free, and that's ended up, we've got nice and even on the back, 3.1. Got a slight difference on the front, where the front right is 2.7. Now I always thought degrees was done in minutes, so when it got to 6 it'd go to 3, but I guess this is 0.7 of a degree. 70% of 60, I don't know. Anyway, so we've got a little bit out on the front, but with it being the front right, which is a bit out, I'm going to be sat there, so maybe that'll counteract itself. Overall, I'm very happy with those numbers. So if that was a geo sheet that you got given after having your car done at Quick Fit or something, you might not know what was going on, but these numbers hopefully will make a bit of sense to you. They make a bit of sense to me, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now I want to go and test the bastard. Well, it works just about. El Dusto. Got a weird kind of misfire on the go. It's intermittent as well. When I came out of the garage, I had an engine warning light on, which went away by itself and then came back again. So, is it on now? Alright, yeah, it's on now. As you can see, it's down there. So, I've got a code reader with me, so we'll see what it's saying. Pending, and well, it says one fault pending and One faulty. PO443. English, please. 03. Is 03 like a misfire one? Like a generic misfire? I don't know. Right, so we know what they are. I can have a look at them when I'm editing this video. Thank you. So, 2 codes. Might help us figure out why she's a bit misfiery. I'm sure that might have something to do with it. You what, mate? Okay, I've returned to the darkness of the barn. We need to get some more lights up here. If we carry on having this little YouTube romance, I don't know how long it's going to last yet. It might just be that one episode. That might be it. It might not be interesting anymore. But if we are going to be doing more videos up here, we'll have to get some more lights. We'll not talk about the lights that I bought off eBay that didn't last 6 months. 4 of the bastards. Anyway, I'm back. So we had a successful day. How's the car feel? Now, at an alignment like that, you're never really going to be able to get a true feel for on the road. You'll instantly notice that the steering wheel's a bit lighter because of the camber at the front, and the car kind of does. The car darts. Obviously, it's the first time I've driven the car, so first impressions, it darts about everywhere. But it's exactly what you'd expect from a car that's had every bush change for a poly bush, and it's got the coilovers on it as well. So it's quite a lot stiffer than a standard one. And it does, on a bumpy road, you feel every bump. So yeah, my car felt alright. The alignment, yeah, drove straight at least on a straight road, let go of the wheel, drove straight. It didn't feel like it was pulling either way. Like I say, it was just, the steering always feels just a bit lighter because you've added a bit more camber on it, but yeah, it was good. I'd recommend the Teguier kit if you've got the time and space to do it yourself. Obviously that'll last a while. Should last forever really, and I've got enough cars to be testing it out on. So yeah, I just need to get just having some tables for each 4 corner, that would be nice, so you can drop the car on them and do the work, rather than doing the guesswork with it being suspended and then, you know, on the ground. I thought I had it cracked. I thought I'd done the string theory code, but I didn't. I got a rough idea, so just keep practicing, I guess. Like I say, it's alright for now, so we'll fucking leave it. Concentrate on this oil burning issue and then all the other crap to go with it. Thanks for your time. Hope you've enjoyed watching the video. Bye. Thanks for watching.